Hey everyone, welcome to another Learn to Code video. I'm here with the mechanical engineer.
Hello there.
So as always, please like and subscribe. It'll help us out a lot so we can keep producing this and mock interview content for you guys. So to start off, for this lesson, we're actually going to tackle usually a initial phone screen. It's very common for if you're looking for internships and you don't have a lot of experience. They'll ask you this question, and it's called FizzBuzz. Have you heard of it before?
I think I know the FizzBuzz game, but I've never heard of it in an interview style question before.
Gotcha. Okay, so like I said, this is kind of just it's kind of just a way to make sure that you know the basics of coding, like maybe like how to define a function and conditionals and things like that. So basically, the whole idea of this is you're going to be given a number n. So we'll write a function given a number n.
Mm-hmm.
And we are going to count from 0 up until n. And if the number is divisible by 3, we're going to print fizz. And if the number is divisible by 5, we will print buzz. And if it's divisible by both, we will print FizzBuzz with no spaces. All right?
Okay.
So
like this, and we want a user input n.
yeah, we can do user input, but just to speed it up, why don't we just write the function and then we can just call it with an n.
Okay.
So why don't you just write a function called FizzBuzz?
Okay. FizzBuzz.
And then that's going to take in a number n.
Yep.
There you go. So now, like I said, that's what an interviewer would say is write a function that prints fizz when it's divisible by 3, buzz divisible by 5, and FizzBuzz with no spaces in between for if it's divisible by both. So why don't you just get started and talk me through it, and we'll see how you do.
Okay, so we clearly want to count up from 1 to n, assuming n is just a positive integer. So for I in n, I think this will count up to n from 1.
You're going to want to do in range n.
Range n, gotcha. Yep. And I know n minus 1 mistakes are pretty common, but I think that this is what we want.
Yeah, so remember what range returns, right? So is this inclusive of n or not?
It's not inclusive.
So if we want to, then what do you do?
Plus 1?
Yep, that's good. Cool. So like I said, divisible by 3 fizz, 5 buzz, 3 and 5 FizzBuzz.
Okay, so now we want it to count up and then probably print, I as it goes through. But first we want to catch if I, and I think there's this percent function which tells you the remainder of I when you divide it by a number, but I'm not too sure. The mod, okay. But I'm not too sure how to use it.
So you just said it gave the remainder, right?
Yeah.
So if the number is divisible by 3, then what will the remainder be?
It would be 0. There wouldn't be a remainder.
Right.
So I ampersand equals 0. First we want to divide.
Nope. So you want it, the mod operator will do the dividing for you, and then the result will be the remainder. So you're actually just going to want to do I mod 3 there.
Oh, okay. Here?
Yep. Yep. And then make sure you get your double equals comparison, right? That's why it's there you go. English, is divisible by 3.
Yeah, if I is divisible by 3, then we want to return fizz, right?
Return. And I'll actually make it a little bit easier for you. Why don't you make a list? You can call it output at the start of your function, and then we can just append the result. So if it's divisible by 3, we'll append fizz, divisible by 5, buzz, and then FizzBuzz for both. And then otherwise, we can just append I. And then we can just return that, excuse me, we just return that list at the end.
Mm-hmm. So we want to generate a list here at the start?
Yep, so you want to do it at the start of your function.
We call it n FizzBuzz equals.
Finding that though.
What was that?
you're in a loop, right? So when you define it at the top of a loop, it's going to get reassigned every time you loop through. So you're going to want to define it just above the loop here.
Okay. FB equals brackets, correct?
Yep. All right, cool. So now we have a list. And then, like I said, instead of returning, because remember, return is going to quit us out of the function, why don't you do nfb.append fizz for that case? Not in the definition. So you had the definition of an empty list correct, right?
Okay. I gotcha. All right. So now we want to input into it. So I don't want to return fizz anymore. I want to, if n, or if our number is divisible by 3, we want to append number 3 to NFB, correct?
You want to append fizz.
So is it nfb.append fizz?
Yep.
And we want this.
There you go.
Okay, I'm starting to get it. And then we sort of want to do the same thing for 5. And 5 equals. But then we also just need to, we don't want to print, we just want to append if else, or let me think. Probably else, right? Because everything else is not 3 or 5. So we want to else nfb.append I.
Okay. And then just make sure you return your list here so we can see it.
NFB.
Yep.
Yep, that'll do it.
Yeah. So why don't you run this? Well, let's call it online. Let's call the function there, and we'll call it with 10. Actually, we'll call it with 15, and then print it so we can see it.
So I think we want this NFB append at the start.
Well, we don't want, if the number is 3, for example, we don't want to, well, look at what's happening, right?
Yeah.
So, like, parse through that output and let's see what's going on. So it looks like 5 wasn't printed, right?
Yeah.
So why don't you look at the way your conditionals are set up, and why is it that 3 is printed there and 5 is not?
So what's the difference between these two? Right. Do I need a space here? Is it just
nope, that won't change anything. So do you remember what happens when you have an else associated with an if there?
Oh,
so that else is only corresponding to the if on line 7. It doesn't care about line 5. So how can line 7 care about all of them? Close. You can keep that one as an else. But then your line 7 should be an else if. Because that way it groups and it makes basically now for those 3
sequential.
You only get 1.
Yeah. Okay.
It was gonna, yeah. So why don't you run this? Still a little bit more we got to do, but run this and let's make sure that.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have an issue at 15 because.
Right.
Yeah, I think I foresee that being an issue. Well, we also have this issue of 1 being called for fizz. Oh, I guess that's 0.
Or is that going to be 0?
Oh, that's 0. Okay, so.
To fix that, you can mess around with range. I don't think I taught you this so far, but. The first argument of range will be your starting point, and then the second it will be. Yep, exactly.
+1. Cool.
Let's run that. That should probably fix up that weird error there.
Fix the fizz. Okay.
So now 15 should be FizzBuzz, right?
Yeah.
But now, why is it only producing fizz?
Because it just calls the if loop and then it skips to return. Correct?
The if statement, yeah.
Yep. Well, it skips the else if.
Right, it'll skip it because we can choose one of 3 things for that case. for each element, right?
Uh-huh.
So how can you do this to basically make sure that when it is divisible by both, that we just append FizzBuzz and we don't even look at the other one?
Can you do like if I, %3 and %5?
Yep.
We do both.
We do both. Yep.
Or no. We just want 15. That's probably the easiest way to do it. Right?
Yeah, sure.
FizzBuzz. Yeah, try that.
Okay.
Okay, this looks good, right?
Look at the very end of the list.
It returned a fizz.
Yep.
Oh, this needs to be an else if. Right?
Yep.
Because, yeah. Okay. Sweet.
There you go. So the kind of like the takeaways of this and what, it kind of shows, for one, kind of having a grasp of how that range function works, right?
Mm-hmm.
Other languages, you do your loop a different way, but, that's fine for Python to do it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And then the mistake that you made by not using else ifs is actually like probably the most common thing. And this is like what this test kind of is to prove that you know how to handle control flow.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then also recognizing that, it is sequential. It'll read top to bottom. So a lot of times what people will do is they'll put the if I mod 15 at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And what'll happen then is that your first conditional of I mod 3 will get hit and it will still print fizz.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So by putting that first, you ensure that we want to skip over fizz and buzz and we want to append both at the start rather than having it get caught by mod 3 or mod 5. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, so it sounds like I nailed all the common errors there.
yeah, I would say you did pretty well, yeah. Let's see, what other little things did I notice? I mean, overall, you did fine. Like, ideally, you'd be able to, try to remember this one and just how to work with control flow in a way that allows it to, make logical sense, right? So, something like this for a phone screen or something, it really is just to see if you actually know anything about coding. So this will not be like one of the really difficult technical interviews that we have like on the channel, for example. But this, if you can pass this with ease, it'll show that, you do know basic syntax and basic control flow. So it shouldn't be,
Gotcha.
So there's a couple fun ways to do this, but we won't get into it. It's kind of one of those questions that has been recycled a million times. So people try to come up with like follow-ups to make it harder, saying like, if you actually remember, we talked about recursion, right? So you could actually do this with recursion. Instead of looping through, you can just call the function with n+1, right? Or n-1 if you want to count down. So that's another way that a lot of times people will ask you how to do it. So, but yeah, overall, pretty good job.
Sweet, thank you.